Welcome back, you night owls. Tonight we trade the tranquil landscapes of ancient Rome and the chilling crypts of forgotten pharaohs for something a little closer to home, a little more modern, but no less terrifying. We're going to the city of lights, the city of romance, the city of art. We're going to the Louvre, but we're not going to admire the Mona Lisa or the Venus de Milo. Oh no! Tonight, you're going deep, you're going down, and you're going to confront the legend of the secret dungeon beneath the museum. A legend whispered in hushed tones by security guards who have spent long nights alone in the cavernous, echoing halls. You probably think you know the Louvre. You've seen the pictures, the glass pyramid gleaming in the Paris sunlight. But have you ever considered what lies beneath all that? The truth is, there's a reason they never finished the excavation. A reason they sealed a particular section of the original fortress and built a museum over it. A reason that has nothing to do with archaeology and everything to do with containment. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And go ahead, drop a comment with your location and the time, because I love seeing where you all are listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in a place you've never seen before, a place most tourists never will. You're standing in a dimly lit, narrow corridor, and the air around you is thick with the scent of ancient stone and a strange metallic tang, like old blood. This isn't a public gallery, a marble-floored hall of masterpieces. This is the underbelly, the forgotten skeleton of the Louvre. You can hear the faint, distant rumble of the city above, the muffled sirens and the horn of a taxi, but down here, it feels like a different world, a different time. Your breath fogs in the cool air, and you wrap your arms around yourself, not just from the chill, but from a growing sense of unease. The walls are rough, unpolished stone, and they're not the carefully restored, even-coloured blocks you see in the public sections of the museum. These are raw, hewn blocks, chiselled by hands long turned to dust. You run your hand along the surface, feeling the jagged edges and the cold, damp rock. This is the Louvre as it was centuries ago, a fortress. Specifically, the fortress of Philippe Auguste, a medieval stronghold built to protect Paris from invaders. A mainstream historical fact, you can find it in any guide to the city. What those guides won't tell you is about the layers beneath those layers, the secrets buried so deep that even the restorers of the Grand Palace never dared to touch them. You see a small rusted sign on the wall ahead, a stark contrast to the polished brass plaques you'd find upstairs. It's written in Old French, and you squint to make it out in the dim light. It warns against going any further, citing instabilité structurelle, or structural instability. But a tiny, curious detail catches your eye. Scratched into the bottom, almost invisible in the grime, are 3 words in Latin: non ad edificationem. Not for building, not for construction. It's a strange phrase to find on a sign about structural safety, isn't it? Almost as if the warning isn't about the building, but about the very act of building on top of this place. As you walk, the corridor begins to descend. The floor is no longer level, but slopes gently downward, and the air grows heavier. You can feel a pressure building in your ears, as if you're diving deep underwater. The lighting grows weaker, and you have to use the flashlight app on your phone to see. A small, quirky or fringe tidbit of history you'd never hear about in a lecture is the story of the Louvre's labyrinth. During the construction of the modern museum, workers would often report getting lost in a series of unmapped tunnels and corridors beneath the fortress. Some claim that the compasses would spin wildly down there, and their radios would fill with static and strange whispering noises. The project managers simply dismissed it as a combination of faulty equipment and the disorientation that comes from working underground. But the stories persisted, passed down from one construction crew to the next. Historians still argue whether the original foundation of the fortress was built on top of an even older structure. Some believe that the fortress of Philippe Auguste was simply a new layer of protection built over Roman and Gallo-Roman settlements, and that the strange tunnels and oddities are just the remnants of those long-lost towns. Others, however, believe that the king's fortress was built to conceal something far more sinister, something that had nothing to do with protection and everything to do with imprisonment. You finally reach a small arched doorway at the end of the corridor. It's unmarked, and the stones around it are a different colour, a dark, bruised grey, as if they've been subjected to intense heat or pressure. The door itself is made of thick, riveted iron, and it's sealed with a heavy, rusted padlock, the kind you'd see in an old horror movie. It's a padlock that looks more like a prop than a functional piece of hardware. So comically large, it's almost funny. You try to laugh, a nervous little chuckle that echoes strangely in the confined space, but the sound dies in your throat as your flashlight beam falls on the metal. There's no keyhole, just a solid block of iron. This door wasn't meant to be opened, it was meant to keep something in, or out. The silence here is different. It's not just the absence of sound, it's a presence, a heavy, suffocating blanket that presses in on you from all sides. You feel a prickling sensation on the back of your neck, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. You whip your head around, but there's nothing there, just the rough stone walls and the lengthening shadows cast by your phone's weak light. You can't shake the feeling that you're not alone, that something is breathing in the darkness just beyond your reach. It's in this moment that you realise this isn't a simple history lesson. This is a trespass, and you've just taken your first step into a place that was never meant to be found. You run your hand over the padlock and a shiver goes through you. The metal is cold, but underneath that chill you can feel a faint, persistent vibration, a low pulsing hum that seems to resonate from the stone behind the door. The sound is so subtle you might have imagined it, but it's there, and it's getting stronger. The air around you feels charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. You've entered the dungeon's foyer, and the real journey is just beginning. You stand before the iron door, the low hum behind it now a palpable vibration in the soles of your feet. It's an unnerving sound, not mechanical, not like an engine, but something organic, like a vast, dormant heart. The cold air you first felt has been replaced by a stagnant, heavy warmth that smells of dust and decay. It feels like the air of a tomb that has been sealed for centuries, undisturbed until you, in your foolish curiosity, disturbed its slumber. You decide to ignore the ridiculous padlock and its strange humming secret. Instead, you turn and follow a different path, a narrow, winding passage that branches off from the main corridor. This path isn't part of the fortress's original structure. It's a modern addition, a service tunnel bored through the ancient rock, probably for electrical conduits or ventilation. It's a clean, concrete tube, but it feels infinitely more threatening than the old stone halls, a violation of the deep history around you. As you walk, your phone's flashlight beam cuts through the oppressive darkness, illuminating the sterile white walls of the tunnel. It's a stark contrast to the rough-hewn stone you just left behind, and for a moment you feel a sense of relief. But then you notice something odd. The walls are covered in what looks like graffiti, but it's not the spray-painted tags you'd see in the streets of Paris. These are crude, hand-drawn symbols, a repeating pattern of spirals and interlocking triangles. They're etched into the concrete with what looks like a nail or a sharp rock. They look desperate. You pause, running your hand over the rough carvings, and feel a jolt of static electricity, a little pop of energy that makes your arm hair stand on end. This modern tunnel is leading you away from the main fortress, and towards something you hadn't anticipated, the heart of the modern Louvre. You can tell because the hum is now accompanied by the faint rhythmic pulse of the ventilation system and the distant electronic chime of a security alert. You realise with a sinking feeling, heading directly beneath the iconic glass pyramid. This structure, a mainstream historical fact that everyone knows, was a hugely controversial addition to the palace. Designed by IM, Pei, its construction in the 1980s was an engineering marvel, but it also necessitated massive excavations, digging far deeper into the earth than any previous renovations. What the public doesn't know is that the digging had to be halted multiple times due to unforeseen structural anomalies. The tunnel widens, and you find yourself in a vast, cavernous chamber. But this isn't ancient stone. This is a mix of old and new. The walls are the foundation of the modern pyramid, massive concrete supports with steel rebar, and they're covered in the same strange symbols you saw in the tunnel. But beneath the modern concrete, you can see the top of a much older structure, a circular stone wall so perfectly round it could only be the work of an advanced civilization. It's a quirky or fringe tidbit that during the pyramid's construction, an architect's assistant wrote in a private journal about a perfect circle found deep in the excavation, a circular wall that defied explanation, and the fact that its existence was quickly swept under the rug by project managers who were under pressure to finish the work on time. The journal entry, which was only discovered years later, mentioned a strange echoing sound that seemed to come from inside the wall, a sound that made the workers so unnerved they refused to continue without a blessing from a local priest. Historians still argue whether the circular structure is a forgotten Roman cistern, a medieval well, or something else entirely. Its perfect symmetry and the fact that it was filled with what a geological survey later identified as a non-terrestrial composite material only adds to the mystery. The debate centres on what exactly the king's men were trying to bury. Was it an ancient artefact? A source of an illness? Or was it something else, something that defied easy categorisation? The term non-terrestrial composite was later explained away as a misreading of the data, but the record remains. You walk toward the centre of the chamber, your footsteps echoing in the vast space. The hum is deafening now, vibrating through the air and into your very bones. You feel a familiar pressure building in your ears, even more intense than before. You look up, and through a small metal grate high above you can see the faint shimmering light of the glass pyramid itself. You're standing directly beneath the most famous entryway in the world, and yet you've never felt more isolated. You realise you're not alone. The shadows in the far corners of the chamber seem to writhe and shift, and you hear a faint whisper, a sound like dry leaves skittering across a paved street on a windy autumn day. It's a sound that seems to come from all directions at once, and it's speaking a language you don't understand, a language made of clicks and hisses and guttural sighs. You can't make out the words, but the tone is unmistakable. It's a sound of immense age and even greater hunger. A shiver colder than any Parisian winter runs down your spine. You're not being watched anymore, you're being perceived. The sound grows louder, and the strange symbols etched on the walls around you seem to glow with a faint internal light, pulsing in time with the hum. You realise they're not just warnings. They're a form of ritualistic protection, a desperate attempt to contain whatever is on the other side of that circular wall. You find a small, rusty metal ladder bolted to one of the concrete pillars. It's barely visible, tucked away in the shadows. You climb it, your hands and feet slipping on the slick, greasy rungs. As you ascend, you notice that the air gets thinner, cleaner, and the whispering sound begins to fade, replaced by the reassuring, if still unsettling, hum of the pyramid's vast cooling system. You're almost at the top when you see it. A small square chamber, cut into the concrete itself, right at the level of the pyramid's foundation. It's a storage room filled with discarded construction equipment, rusty tools and empty supply crates. But in the centre of the room, propped up against a stack of crates, is an old, leather-bound book. It looks impossibly out of place, a relic from another time in a room full of modern junk. It's calling to you, its pages slightly ajar, as if it wants you to see what's inside. You feel a strange pull, a fascination that overrides your fear, a compulsion to know. You descend from the ladder and walk toward the book. It's old, very old, and its cover is soft and worn, the leather cracked and faded. There's a single word embossed on its cover, but you can't make it out in the dim light. You run your fingers over the letters, and they feel strange, like Braille, but not in any language you know. You know with absolute certainty that this book is your key. It's the reason you were drawn down here, the reason you've been walking in the dark, the reason for the hum and the whispers. It holds the secret of the dungeon, the reason it was sealed, and the reason it was never meant to be opened. You pick it up and the weight feels wrong, heavier than it should be, as if the pages are made of lead. A small cloud of dust rises from it and you cough, waving your hand in front of your face. You open the cover and the first page is blank, but a name is written in a neat, spidery hand on the inside. A name you've never heard of, but one that you somehow know is going to be very, very important. The name of the man who sealed the dungeon. The architect. You stand in the small chamber, the book heavy in your hands, the weight of it feeling less like a physical object and more like the accumulated dread of centuries. The name on the inside cover reads Etienne de Saint-André, and beneath it, in the same delicate script, is a single word, Architectus. You flip through the book's first few pages and they're not filled with words, but with meticulous hand-drawn schematics of the Louvre. They show the fortress as it was in the late 12th century, a sprawling fortified castle, but with an eerie level of detail you've never seen in any historical document. These aren't just floor plans. They're cross-sections showing the structure deep into the earth, far beyond the foundations, into a space that looks more like a natural cavern than a man-made cellar. It's here that the diagrams get strange. They show intricate non-Euclidean angles and spiralling staircases that lead to impossible depths, and a series of interlocking sealed chambers that are labelled only with strange symbols and the Latin word prohibita, forbidden. You can't help but laugh. A short, sharp bark that sounds utterly out of place in the silent chamber. A forbidden chamber under the Louvre? What is this? A Dan Brown novel? But the cold knot of fear in your stomach tells you this is no work of fiction. A mainstream historical fact is that the Louvre's foundations are notoriously complex, with multiple layers of construction from different eras. During the IMP Pyramid project, for example, construction workers uncovered the foundations of the original medieval fortress, a square structure with massive walls and a moat. But what historians still argue whether is what lies beneath those foundations. Was it just the remains of a Roman settlement, or was it something else? Something that the builders of the fortress intentionally buried? The journal seems to suggest the latter, with diagrams showing the original fortress walls converging on a single central point. A point labelled with a symbol that looks like an open eye with a tear falling from it. As you flip more pages, the book begins to feel warm in your hands, a heat that seeps through the leather and into your skin. You feel a pull, a strange magnetic force drawing you toward a specific corner of the room. You step over discarded tools and empty paint cans until you're standing against the cold, concrete wall. There's nothing there, just a blank, unblemished surface. But the warmth from the book is intense now, and the pages seem to vibrate in your hands. You press the book against the wall, and to your astonishment, a faint, blue light begins to emanate from the page, seeping into the concrete. A hairline crack appears, and then another, and another, until a perfectly square section of the wall, about the size of a small door, is outlined in glowing blue light. The hum from the forbidden chamber is suddenly much louder, a deep resonant bass note that shakes the very ground you stand on. The light intensifies, and with a soft click the square section of the wall slides inward, revealing a small dark opening. The air that rushes out is not cold or warm, it's dead, stagnant, and smells like ozone and something else, something sharp and acrid, like burnt metal and decay. You hesitate, the beam from your phone's flashlight trembling in your hand. This is it. This is the forbidden chamber, the place that was sealed away and then built over. A quirky or fringe tidbit from the annals of Parisian law speaks of the crier of the catacombs. This was a legend about a man in the 19th century who made a living guiding expeditions into the sprawling network of tunnels beneath the city. He claimed he once stumbled upon a sealed-off section near the Louvre that was not on any map, and that when he got close he heard a sound like 1,000 whispering voices coming from behind the wall. He fled in terror and never returned to that part of the tunnels again, claiming that whatever was behind the wall was not of this world. His story was dismissed as the ramblings of a drunk, but you can't help but wonder if his whispering voices were the same hum that now surrounds you. You step through the opening, and the air immediately becomes thicker, a dense, viscous substance that feels like you're walking through water. Your phone's flashlight beam cuts through the gloom, and you can see that you're in a small circular room. The walls are not stone, but a strange black material that seems to absorb light. The floor is smooth and reflective, like polished obsidian. In the centre of the room, on a pedestal of the same dark material, rests a single object, a sphere of a clear crystalline substance, about the size of a human head. The hum is coming from it, a low, constant vibration that feels more like a thought than a sound. As you get closer, you see that inside the sphere, tiny hairline cracks writhe and twist like living things. They seem to follow your movements, shifting and realigning as you walk around the pedestal. You reach out to touch the sphere, a foolish, instinctual act, and a warning from the book flashes into your mind, not in words, but as a feeling of intense, suffocating terror. It's the architect's panic, his despair, his fear. You pull your hand back, heart pounding, and look at the book in your hand. The pages are now glowing with that same faint blue light, and the images are changing, the schematics giving way to a new set of drawings. They show the sphere on the pedestal, but they also show a series of intricate, almost impossible mechanisms surrounding it, gears and levers and interlocking rings, all designed to contain something. The drawings are labelled Machina Custodiae, the containment machine, and they show the sphere being lowered into a deeper chamber below, a chamber you haven't seen yet. The feeling of being watched returns, but this time it's not a subtle prickling on your neck. This is a direct, penetrating gaze that feels like it's burrowing into your very soul. You look up, and in the black light-absorbing wall a shape coalesces from the shadows. It's not a person or a thing, but a swirling vortex of nothingness, a spot of true, absolute black that seems to devour the light from your phone. And from the centre of this void, a single word whispers into your mind, not through your ears, but directly into your thoughts. It's not French or Latin or any human language. It's a sound that feels like a question, an inquiry into your very presence here. It's the question a predator asks its prey. The hum from the sphere intensifies, and you realise that it's not just a hum, it's a scream. The crystal is a cage, and whatever is inside it is trying to get out. The black vortex on the wall is a projection of its will, its power, and its hunger. You realise you've made a terrible mistake. You haven't just stumbled into a secret, you've woken something up. The book in your hand is not just a guide to the dungeon, it's a key, a tool, and by using it, you've alerted whatever lies within. You have to go deeper. The drawings in the book show a way to secure the sphere, to put it back where it belongs, and the only way to get there is to face whatever is in the next chamber. The black void on the wall seems to grow larger, its silent question becoming more insistent. It's no longer just a feeling of being watched, it's a feeling of being consumed. You turn your back on the crystal and the swirling darkness, and you find a small staircase in the wall you hadn't noticed before. It spirals downward into a new darkness, a darkness even your flashlight can't penetrate. This isn't just a tomb, it's a prison. And you're not the jailer, you're the next inmate. You descend into the new darkness, the twisting staircase of the forbidden chamber, feeling less like a passage and more like a drain pipe leading to a very unpleasant basement. The air grows even thicker, the hum from the sphere above becoming a muffled, bass-heavy thrum that you feel more in your chest than hear with your ears. The book in your hand feels heavier still, and the glowing blue light from its pages is your only guide. As you go down, the modern concrete walls give way to an older material, smooth, cool stone, carved with a precision that seems impossible for the medieval era. It's too perfect, too uniform. A mainstream historical fact is that King Philippe Auguste's fortress was a marvel of military engineering for its time, with thick walls and a strategic location on the banks of the Seine. But what the history books don't mention is the chilling rumour of a secondary secret project, a deep excavation commissioned by the king himself. This was no simple cellar or dungeon, this was something else. The staircase ends abruptly, and you step out into a vast circular room, far larger than the chamber above. The light from the book reveals the walls, which are covered in a series of intricate carvings. They depict scenes of the king and his court, but they're not celebratory. They show King Philippe Auguste, a stern-faced bearded man, standing with his hands outstretched as if in supplication or prayer. Around him, his subjects are shown in postures of immense suffering, their faces contorted in agony. They're not being hurt by soldiers or invaders. They seem to be suffering from an unseen force, a pestilence that manifests as swirling tendrils of black smoke emanating from the ground. It's a terrifying, visceral depiction of a plague. This is a quirky or fringe tidbit of Parisian history, the legend of the Black Plague of the Louvre. It was a mysterious illness that only afflicted the residents of the royal fortress, and was said to be so terrifying that the king and his court would flee the palace for weeks at a time, only returning when the affliction had mysteriously subsided. The official records from the period mention a brief but severe fever, but the details are sparse, and it's largely been dismissed as an overblown account of a common epidemic. The carvings on the wall don't stop there. They show the king and his most trusted advisors holding what looks like the crystal sphere you saw upstairs, and they're lowering it into a deep, dark pit. Around the pit, priests and scholars are shown performing a ritual, their faces a mix of terror and grim determination. The carvings on this level are much more disturbing than a simple historical record of an illness. They're a confession. They show a king who, in his desperation, performed a terrible ritual to contain something that was unleashed upon his city. Historians still argue whether King Philippe Auguste's massive investment in the Louvre was purely for defensive purposes, or if it was driven by a more personal, desperate need. Was he building a fortress to protect Paris from invaders, Or was he building it to contain a secret, a mistake, a terrifying force that he himself had unleashed? The journal in your hand seems to confirm the latter, with a new entry that appears on a now glowing page. The page is a personal account, written in the architect's careful hand. His Majesty, in his great wisdom, did not seek to contain a pestilence, it reads. He sought to bind a god, a fallen god, a whisperer of truths that no man should know. He found it in the earth beneath his future palace, and in his arrogance he sought to control it, to turn its power to his will. But its power is not of this world, and its will is a hunger. It seeped into the very stone, a black shadow that consumed the souls of all who lived too close. The fever was but a symptom. The madness was the disease you stopped reading, a cold shock running through you. A god? A fallen god? You had been expecting some kind of scientific experiment gone wrong, a magical artifact, but this is something else entirely. The hum from the sphere above you is no longer a hum. It's the sound of a living thing, a vast ancient entity bound in a cage of crystal and stone. You can't go back. The staircase has disappeared, the walls of the chamber now a seamless, smooth circle of black stone. The only way forward is a single, narrow archway at the far end of the room. It's unmarked, but you can feel a cold draught coming from within, a draught that smells of dust and something else, something sweet and cloying, like rotting flowers. You walk toward it, your heart pounding a frantic rhythm against your ribs. As you get closer, you see a small carved symbol above the archway. It's the same symbol you saw on the walls in the modern tunnel, the spirals and interlocking triangles. It's a warning, a trap, a seal. And now you're standing in front of it. The carvings on the walls seem to press in on you, the faces of the suffering subjects contorting into silent screams. The king's eyes, etched in stone, seem to follow you, their expression a mix of shame and terror. You hesitate for a moment, remembering your first thought of this being a joke, a simple, spooky story. You remember the friendly, welcoming introduction, the call to like and subscribe. It feels so far away now, so impossibly naive. There's nothing simple about this. This isn't a story. This is a journey into the dark heart of a city, a plunge into a secret that a king desperately tried to bury. The draft from the archway is now a whisper, and you realise it's the same language you heard earlier, the clicks and hisses. But this time, you understand a single word. It's your name. Not your actual name, of course, but the name you use in the online world, a name you've never spoken aloud. It's a chilling intimacy, a violation of the digital and the real that makes your blood run cold. Whatever is down there knows you. The book in your hands begins to glow more brightly, and the words on the page rearrange themselves. The architect's journal entry fades, replaced by a new diagram, a complex lock mechanism within the archway itself. It's a puzzle, a series of interlocking rings that have to be turned in a specific order. The diagram is accompanied by a new message, a warning from the architect to anyone who found this place. The king's madness has been contained, but its key remains. He who opens this door will not only release the madness, but will also have to face its creator, for the key is not in the lock, but in the mind of the architect himself. You look at the diagram and the words, and a terrible realization dawns on you. The architect is not just the keeper of the secret, he's part of it. His consciousness, his mind, his fear is bound to this place. The key to the lock is not a physical object, it's the understanding of his mind. And you have his journal, you have his words, you have his fear, you are the key. The weight of the architect's journal in your hands feels impossibly heavy now. It's not just a book, it's a living testament to a man's terror, a mind bound to a terrible secret. You stare at the diagram of the lock, the intricate rings and the sequence that seems to defy logic. The first ring is labelled Fides, faith, the second Sapientia, wisdom, and the third Timor, fear. It's a riddle, a psychological puzzle that requires you to understand not the mechanics of a lock, but the mindset of the man who created it. You remember the architect's name, Etienne de Saint-André, and you know, with a chilling certainty, that you have to step into his mind to get past this door. A mainstream historical fact is that the construction of the Louvre fortress involved a brilliant team of engineers and master stonemasons, but the name of the lead architect remains lost to history. a curious omission in an otherwise meticulous record. This lack of a name is a significant gap, one that has led historians to a myriad of theories, from a simple administrative error to a deliberate act of historical erasure. You close your eyes and focus on the book. The pages glow and the words begin to rearrange themselves into a new form, a story, a narrative that unfolds directly in your mind. It's the architect's story, a tale of a man who was not just a builder of walls, but a seeker of knowledge. He was a master of geometry and a student of ancient texts, an alchemist in a world that was just beginning to question the old ways. He was commissioned by King Philippe Auguste to build the strongest fortress in Europe, but during the excavation, he and his team discovered something beneath the ground that was not on any map. A strange metallic substance that hummed with a low, constant energy. They dug deeper, and they found the source of the humming, a vast circular chamber sealed with a smooth black material. The king, in his hubris, demanded it be opened, believing it to be a source of untold wealth or power. A quirky or fringe tidbit from a collection of medieval folklore speaks of the Whispering Stones of Paris. These were supposedly magical rocks found deep in the earth that could impart knowledge to those who listened closely. The legend claims that a certain master builder, an unnamed architect of a grand fortress, discovered a vein of these stones and became obsessed with their secrets. He believed they held the key to a new kind of architecture, a way to build without mortar or chisel, a way to shape reality itself. His disappearance, according to the legend, was not a disappearance at all, but a transformation, his mind becoming one with the stone itself. As you stand there, the architect's mind becomes yours. You see his world, a world of candlelit workshops and dusty parchments, a world of scientific discovery and occult speculation. You feel his excitement as he first encountered the humming stone, his intellectual curiosity overpowering his sense of caution. You feel his terror as the stone began to whisper, not just knowledge, but madness. You see his colleagues succumbing to a strange feverish illness, their minds unravelling as the whispers drove them mad. You see the king, his ambition turning to fear, demanding that the source of the madness be contained. The architect, in a last-ditch effort, devised the containment system, the intricate lock, and the ritual you read about earlier. He understood that you couldn't seal this thing with just stone and iron. You had to seal it with a living mind. And in his desperate act of self-sacrifice, he wove his own consciousness into the lock, becoming the very key he wrote about in his journal. Historians still argue whether the illness that plagued the Louvre fortress was a genuine plague or a psychosomatic epidemic. The historical record is too vague to be conclusive, and the rapid disappearance of the illness after the fortress was finished and occupied only adds to the mystery. Some scholars believe that the close quarters and poor sanitation of medieval living simply led to a series of isolated outbreaks that were later exaggerated in folklore. But others, the ones who have studied the weird non-medical reports of the time, suggest that something else was at play, a psychological contagion that was so powerful it manifested as a physical illness. The architect's journal, if it were ever found, would certainly settle the debate. You are no longer in the dark chamber. You are in the architect's workshop, a ghost in his memories. You see him at his desk, frantically drawing the diagrams of the lock, his hands trembling with fear. He's not just drawing a mechanism, he's drawing a self-portrait of his mind. The lock represents his journey, his faith in science and reason, his wisdom in understanding the danger, and his fear of what he had unleashed. To open the lock, you have to relive his journey. You have to understand his faith, his wisdom, and his fear. The first ring, Fides, demands that you believe in the possibility of the impossible, that you accept the reality of a whispering god bound in stone. The second ring, Sapientia, requires you to understand that this god is not to be worshipped or controlled, but to be contained. And the third ring, Timor, requires you to accept the absolute unyielding terror that comes from knowing the truth of what is down there. You feel a sharp, agonizing stab of pain in your mind as you accept each of these truths. It's not physical pain, but a psychic assault, a flood of memories and emotions that aren't yours, a terror so profound it feels like it will tear you apart. You feel the architect's panic as he performs the ritual, his desperate hope that it will work and his final crushing despair as he realizes he must bind himself to the lock, that the sacrifice of his sanity is the only way to ensure the creature stays locked away. You feel his final silent scream as his mind becomes one with the stone, a scream that echoes through time and space and is now, finally, heard by you. You gasp, your eyes flying open, and you are back in the chamber, standing before the archway. The air is still and silent. The whisper's gone. The light from the book has faded and the lock on the archway has changed. The intricate rings are now aligned, each glowing with a faint internal light. You have solved the puzzle. You have become the architect, and in doing so, you have opened the door. The archway pulses once, a soft, ethereal light, and then the heavy stone door, which you didn't even realise was there, slides soundlessly into the wall. A new passage is revealed. It's not a corridor or a staircase. It's a gaping maw of darkness, a void so absolute that even the light from your phone is swallowed by it, casting no shadows, no reflections, nothing. The air from within is colder now, a profound and ancient chill that smells of raw earth and something like ozone, but more metallic, more alive. You have come this far. You have the key. And now you have no choice but to use it. You step into the void, the last vestiges of the architect's memories fading from your mind like a dream. You step into the void, and the darkness is absolute. It's not just the absence of light. It's a living, a breathing thing that wraps around you, a palpable pressure that seems to want to absorb you. Your phone's flashlight is useless here. It turns on, the screen glowing with a weak blue light, but the beam itself seems to dissipate the moment it leaves the glass, a single impotent gesture against the profound blackness. You have to rely on the faint glow from the architect's journal, its pages now radiating a soft, consistent light that feels more like a memory than an actual source of illumination. The air is so cold it hurts to breathe, and the smell of ozone is overwhelming, like the air after a lightning strike, but with a deeper, more ancient quality to it. You trudge forward, your hand outstretched, feeling for a wall, a staircase, anything to ground you in this sensory deprivation tank. You feel a surface beneath your feet that isn't rough stone or smooth concrete. It's hard, but it has a strange yielding quality to it, like compressed sand. You take another step and you hear a soft, sloshing sound, as if you've stepped in water. But it's not water. You bring your hand down, and the light from the journal reveals a thin layer of a black viscous liquid that seems to pulse with a faint internal light of its own. It's warm to the touch, and it gives off a sweet, cloying scent that is deeply unsettling. You have to get out of this stuff, but you can't see where you're going. You close your eyes, and for a moment you feel a deep, abiding sense of calm, a sense of surrender that is more terrifying than any panic. It's the feeling of a predator telling you everything is going to be okay before it devours you. You shake your head, forcing the feeling away, and you take a tentative step to the side. A mainstream historical fact is that the Louvre fortress was built with a deep well at its centre, a source of fresh water for the troops and residents. What history doesn't mention is the story of the well's abandonment. When King Philippe Auguste ordered the construction of a new well, the old one was filled in. But the royal records from the period claim that the water in the old well had a bitter taste and a strange viscous quality, and that anyone who drank from it would fall into a deep, unshakable melancholy. This was dismissed as a superstitious peasant's tale at the time, but as you trudge through the viscous liquid, you can't help but wonder if the well was simply the first part of the dungeon that was sealed, the first warning to a king who had no idea what he was dealing with. The liquid beneath your feet feels less like a puddle and more like a pool. It's getting deeper, and the warmth is becoming a feverish heat that makes your skin prickle and your heart race. You finally stumble into a wall, a solid, unforgiving surface that is cold and rough and thank God dry. You feel your way along it, the light from the journal illuminating strange carvings. They're not the formal historical carvings from the chamber above. These are crude, desperate scratches in the stone, as if someone was trying to tell a story with a fingernail or a shard of rock. The carvings show stick figures, simple, unadorned representations of people, and they're all running. They're running away from something that isn't human, a swirling vortex of lines and dots that seems to devour the stick figures, leaving nothing but a faint residual shadow. A quirky or fringe tidbit is the legend of the Phantom of the Pit that arose among the workers during the early stages of the Louvre construction. The workers, who were digging the foundations, would often report hearing a high-pitched wailing sound coming from deep within the earth, a a sound they swore was the trapped soul of someone who had died in a forgotten pit beneath the city. The workers were often found with strange scratch marks on their faces and hands, as if they had been clawing at the walls in their sleep. They all had the same vacant, haunted look in their eyes. You stop and look at the carvings. They're a warning, a message left by the men who dug this dungeon, the men who first came into contact with whatever is down here. The stick figures you realise are them. They're the men who fell victim to the illness, the madness that the architect wrote about. And the thing that is devouring them is the same swirling blackness you saw on the wall in the Forbidden Chamber. It's not just a warning, it's a premonition. It's telling you what is going to happen to you if you go any further. Historians still argue whether the sudden disappearance of a number of construction workers during the initial excavation was due to a collapse or a more sinister cause. The official record states that a section of the tunnel collapsed, burying the workers, and that their bodies were never recovered. But the records from the time show that the workers were from the same small village, and that their families received a strange, anonymous sum of money from the royal treasurer, an amount far greater than what would have been a normal payment for their lives. It was an unofficial cover-up, a hush-money payment for a truth too terrible to be revealed, and now you're seeing that truth scrawled on the walls of the dungeon they died to build. You continue to feel your way along the wall, the carvings becoming more frantic, more desperate. The stick figures are now drawn with their hands over their ears, as if trying to block out a sound, and the swirling vortex is now shown with a single open eye at its centre. The eye is not a drawing, it's a gouge in the stone itself, a deep, round hole that looks like it was made with a chisel or a sharp rock. It's a literal representation of the vortex's power, its ability to see into the minds of the men who tried to contain it. You reach out and touch the gouge, and a jolt of pure terror shoots through you, a cold electric shock that makes you cry out. You snatch your hand back, and the air is filled with a new sound, a thin, high-pitched whine that seems to come from the hole itself. It's a sound of immense suffering, a silent scream that is somehow louder than any noise you've ever heard. It's the scream of a man being driven mad by an unseen force. It's the scream of the architect's team, the men who fell victim to the illness, the men who drew these final, desperate warnings. You stumble away from the wall, your heart pounding, your mind reeling. You're not just in a historical place. You're in a place of immense psychic resonance, a place where the fear and the suffering of the men who built it still linger. A powerful echo of the past that is not a memory, but a presence. The viscous liquid beneath your feet seems to be boiling now, a low bubbling sound that is both disgusting and terrifying. You have to get out of here. You have to find a way to the next chamber. The book in your hand is glowing more brightly now, the light pulsing in time with your frantic heartbeat. The page is changing, the architect's diagrams giving way to a new image. A series of glyphs that look like constellations, a star chart of a night sky you don't recognise. The glyphs are glowing, pulsing, and as you look at them, you realise they're not a map of the heavens. They're a map of the chamber you're in. They're telling you which way to go. They're a puzzle, a key, and a warning all in one. The star chart shows a clear path forward, but it also shows the path of the stick figures, a path that ends in a vortex of blackness. You have to choose your way. The constellation of glyphs on the architect's journal pulses with a new, insistent light, urging you to move. You follow its guidance, your feet sloshing through the thick black liquid. The floor under your feet feels slick and treacherous, and the air around you is getting warmer, the ozone smell replaced by a cloying, earthy aroma, like a fresh grave. You feel your way along the smooth black walls, the carvings of the running stick figures now a distant memory. This new part of the dungeon is eerily silent, devoid of the whispers and the hums of the previous chambers. The only sound is the squelch of your shoes in the viscous liquid and the frantic thumping of your own heart. A mainstream historical fact is that the Louvre's foundations are built on top of a marshy area, a floodplain for the Seine River. Over the centuries, this has caused a myriad of structural problems, with sections of the old fortress slowly sinking into the waterlogged earth. This has been a well-documented problem for the modern museum, but what is not so well documented is the strange black sludge that was found during the initial deep excavations for the pyramid. It was a substance that defied geological analysis, a thick, tar-like material that seemed to absorb all moisture around it, leaving the surrounding earth dry and cracked. The official report called it a geological anomaly, but the workers who found it called it the King's Ink, a reference to a long-forgotten rumour about a substance that was used to write a forbidden contract. You find a small raised section of the floor, a patch of dry stone, and you climb out of the sludge, grateful for the respite. You sit down, pulling the journal closer, its light a small, comforting island in the profound darkness. You flip through its pages, the glowing constellations of the previous chapter now gone, replaced by new images. The new pages are not a map, but a series of drawings and symbols. They're meticulous, hand-drawn diagrams of strange, impossible machines, gears that interlock in non-Euclidean ways, and levers that seem to move without a visible power source. But interspersed with the diagrams are strange coded messages. The code is not a simple substitution cipher. It's a complex system of symbols and drawings, a quirky or fringe tidbit of occult lore that speaks of the architect's language. This was a mythical form of communication used by master builders in the Middle Ages, a secret language that could only be deciphered by those who understood the sacred geometry of the universe. It was said that the language was so powerful it could be used to bind demons and create impossible structures. You stare at the coded messages, your mind racing. You feel a strange sense of familiarity with the symbols, as if you've seen them before in some long-forgotten dream. The architect's mind, you realise, is still a part of yours, a lingering echo of his knowledge and his terror. You hold the journal up, and the light from the pages seems to change, to shimmer and shift, and the symbols on the page begin to rearrange themselves, to move and turn like the hands of a clock. You watch, mesmerised, as the code reveals itself, the drawings of the strange machines becoming a story, a narrative of the architect's descent into madness. Historians still argue whether the architect's disappearance was a genuine act of escape, or a symptom of the very madness he was trying to contain. The fact that the official records make no mention of his name is either an act of deliberate historical erasure, or a reflection of the fact that he simply ceased to exist in a way that could be documented. Some scholars believe he was a victim of a mental breakdown, that his mind simply couldn't comprehend the true nature of the secrets he was uncovering. Others, however, believe that he was consumed by the very thing he was trying to contain, that he was so close to the truth that he was absorbed into it, his soul becoming a part of the dungeon itself. As you watch the code unfold, you realise it's a confession. The drawings are not of machines. They are of the king's plans. The king, it turns out, was not a simple, superstitious man who wanted to bury a plague. He was an ambitious and ruthless king who wanted to harness the power of the entity for his own gain. The entity, the architect reveals, is not a god. It is a source of knowledge, a living library of all the truths of the universe. But the knowledge comes at a price. It drives men insane. The king, in his arrogance, was willing to pay that price. He wanted to use the knowledge to see the future, to know the thoughts of his enemies, to become an all-powerful ruler. But he didn't understand the true nature of the entity. He didn't realise that the knowledge was not a gift, but a parasite, a thing that fed on the sanity of its host. The architect in his journal reveals his plan. He had no intention of helping the king. He was going to bind the entity, yes, but not to harness its power. He was going to trap it, to build a prison for it deep beneath the earth, a prison that would be sealed with a living lock. He was going to use the king's ambition against him. The final drawing in the coded message is a schematic of the chamber you're in, a circular room with a central pedestal and 3 glowing symbols. The symbols are not a code, they are a set of instructions. The pedestal, you realise, is the last part of the containment system. It's a receiver, a transmitter, and a key, and the 3 symbols correspond to the 3 components of the entity's power: its voice, its knowledge, and its hunger. To stop it, you have to break the connection, to sever the link between the entity and the world above. You look up from the journal, the light from its pages illuminating a new feature of the chamber. In the centre of the room, exactly where the drawing showed it, is a pedestal made of the same black light-absorbing material as the walls above. On its surface, 3 circular indentations glow with a faint internal light. You walk toward it, your feet still sinking in the viscous liquid, your mind a whirlwind of information. The architect's plan, the king's ambition, the entity's power. It all seems to fit together now, a terrifyingly logical puzzle. You have to place something in each of the 3 indentations to break the connection. But what? The journal gives no more clues. You look around the room, your eyes straining in the dim light. There is nothing but the smooth black walls, the viscous liquid, and the silent pedestal. You feel a new sensation in your mind, a new voice, a new presence. It's not the architect's mind, not a memory or an echo. This is something else, something ancient and vast and hungry. It's the entity. It's reaching out to you, its voice a whisper that is made of pure knowledge, a silent torrent of information that floods your mind. It shows you the secrets of the universe, the birth of stars, the death of galaxies, the origin of life itself. It shows you your own future, a life of success and power and wealth, a life beyond your wildest dreams. It's a bribe. It's offering you everything, and all it wants in return is to be freed. It's the hunger that the architect wrote about, a hunger for freedom, for more. You resist, shaking your head, forcing the visions away. The entity's voice changes, the whisper becoming a snarl of frustration and rage. It's angry. It knows you know too much. You have to act now. You have to find a way to complete the circuit, to sever the connection, to finish what the architect started. But what do you have that could possibly stop an ancient cosmic entity? You look down at the journal in your hands, the light from its pages a final defiant answer. The entity's voice in your mind is a storm of rage and frustration, the promise of infinite knowledge replaced by a deafening psychic static. You clutch the architect's journal, its glow a steadying beacon in the face of this mental assault. You're on the precipice now, standing at the final puzzle, the one that the architect himself never had a chance to complete. The 3 indentations on the pedestal before you pulse with a soft light, waiting for their key. The journal, you realise, isn't just a guide to this place. It is a part of the containment system itself. A mainstream historical fact is that in the Middle Ages, master builders often created master keys for their grand projects, not just for doors, but for complex structural mechanisms and hidden chambers. These keys were not physical objects, but a series of geometric formulas and proportional ratios that, when applied correctly, could unlock the secrets of the building. The architect's journal, with its intricate diagrams and coded messages, is a perfect example of this. You look down at the open page, and the symbols that once looked like a star chart now look like a schematic for a human mind. The architect, in his final moments of lucidity, wasn't just drawing the dungeon, he was drawing himself. The 3 indentations on the pedestal, you now understand, are not for physical objects. They are for ideas, for concepts, for the very essence of human thought. The first indentation is for animus, the mind. The second is for sensus, the senses. And the third is for memoria, the memory. To break the connection, you have to sever the entity's hold on the very things that make you human. A quirky or fringe tidbit of Parisian lore tells of a group of medieval scholars, the Gnostics of the Latin Quarter, who believed that the human mind was not a product of the body, but a manifestation of a higher consciousness. They claimed that the most brilliant minds of their time were not just intelligent, but were connected to something ancient and vast, a non-terrestrial entity that granted them knowledge and wisdom in exchange for their sanity. They believed that this entity resided in a sealed chamber beneath the city, and that the only way to sever the connection was to sever one's own connection to the world, to blind yourself, to deafen yourself, to forget who you were. The architect's final act, you realise, was a ritual of self-mutilation, not of the body, but of the mind. Historians still argue whether the Gnostic cults of Paris were a genuine spiritual movement, or a cover for something more sinister. The fact that the most prominent members of the cult were all scholars, architects and alchemists who worked on royal projects has led some to believe that they were not just seeking spiritual enlightenment, but were trying to harness the power of an unknown force. The fact that they all seem to suffer from a mysterious form of dementia in their final years only adds to the mystery. The architect's journal, with its clear diagrams and confessions, would be the definitive proof, the missing link that ties the Gnostic theories to a terrifying reality. You look at the pedestal, and you realise what you have to do. The journal, with its meticulous record of the architect's terror and his final desperate act, is the key to unlocking the puzzle. The first indentation, animus, requires you to understand the mind of the architect, to embrace his terror and his wisdom, to become him for a brief, terrifying moment. You place your hand over the first indentation, and a surge of psychic energy, A rush of memories and emotions that aren't your own floods your mind. You are the architect. You are a man consumed by fear, a man who has seen the face of a god and has been driven mad by its truth. You feel the weight of his knowledge, the burden of his secret, the pain of his sacrifice. And just as quickly as it came, it's gone. A ghost of a feeling that leaves you gasping for air. The indentation glows with a bright blue light, a confirmation that you have passed the first test. The second indentation, census, requires you to sever the entity's hold on your senses. It wants to show you things, to whisper to you, to touch you. The viscous liquid beneath your feet begins to writhe, and you hear a new sound, not a whisper, not a hum, but a chorus of voices, a symphony of 1,000 different languages, all speaking at once, all whispering your name. The voices are a siren song, a promise of a truth you cannot comprehend. You close your eyes, forcing yourself to rely on something other than your senses. You rely on the feel of the journal in your hands, the rough texture of the leather, the cool weight of the pages. You place your hand over the second indentation, and the voices suddenly stop. The silence that follows is more terrifying than any sound. The indentation glows with a bright red light, a sign that you have passed the second test. The third and final indentation, Memoria, is the most terrifying. The entity wants to consume your memories, to turn your life into a blank slate, to absorb your history and your consciousness, and to leave you a hollow shell. A rush of images floods your mind. They're not your memories, but the entities. You see a galaxy being born, a star dying, a planet being consumed by a black hole. You see your own life, your childhood, your family, your friends, and the memories are distorted, twisted, corrupted by the entity's presence. It's trying to show you that your life is nothing but a fleeting moment, a meaningless flicker in the vastness of time and space. It wants you to give up, to surrender your memories, to become one with its vast, terrifying consciousness. You fight back, and the only weapon you have is the architect's journal. You hold it up, and its light shines a spotlight on a single page, a confession from the architect himself. He writes about his own family, his love for his wife and his children, and the terrible regret he feels for sacrificing his sanity to protect them. His love, his memories, his humanity. These are the things that saved him from being completely consumed. You look at the final indentation, and you know what you have to do. You have to remember. You have to remember who you are. You have to remember the feeling of the sun on your face, the smell of rain on a summer day, the sound of laughter. You have to remember the things that the entity wants you to forget. You close your eyes, and you remember the things that matter, the memories that make you, you. You place your hand over the final indentation, and you feel a jolt of pure, unadulterated pain. It's not physical, but it's real. It's the feeling of a part of you being ripped away, and you scream. When you open your eyes, the journal is gone. It has disintegrated into a pile of fine, white dust, and the light from its pages has been absorbed into the pedestal. The 3 indentations are no longer glowing. They are a dull, lifeless grey. The humming, the whispering, the voices, they're all gone. The silence is now complete. The viscous liquid on the floor has receded, leaving the stone floor clean and dry. The air is no longer filled with the smell of ozone, but with the scent of old, damp earth. You have done it. You have severed the connection. But you have paid a price. The part of your memory you sacrificed, the part that was so painful to let go of, is gone. You don't know what it was, but you know you'll never get it back. You stand there in the silence, a hollow feeling in the pit of your stomach, and you wonder what part of you is now a permanent resident of the secret dungeon beneath the Louvre. The path forward is no longer a dark void, but a clear, brightly lit corridor. You have cracked the code, and you have, in a way, become the architect. The silence is absolute, a profound lack of sound that feels as if you've gone deaf. The lightless void of the previous chamber has been replaced by a new corridor, one that is lit with a strange, flickering luminescence that seems to come from the very stone itself. The air is no longer cold or thick with the smell of ozone. Instead, it is dry and dusty, and carries the faint, nostalgic scent of beeswax and old paper. The walls are no longer smooth and black, but are made of polished, pale limestone, and they're covered in what looks like a series of intricate tapestries woven directly into the stone. You run a hand over the surface, and it's cool and smooth to the touch, and the texture feels impossibly real. You have to remind yourself that you're not in a gallery upstairs, but deep beneath the earth. You've moved past the realm of the architect's mind and into the history of the thing itself. The tapestries are a record, a historical document, but they're not written in words. They're woven in images. The first tapestry shows the palace in a time of great celebration, with courtiers dancing in the great hall and nobles feasting in the dining rooms. The second tapestry is a stark and terrifying contrast. It shows the palace under a dark cloud, a miasma of black and sickly green that seems to seep from the very stones. The courtiers are now writhing on the ground, their bodies contorted with a fever, their faces a mask of pure terror. The sickness is not a simple fever. The tapestries show the afflicted with their eyes wide open, their pupils rolled back, as if they are seeing something unspeakable. A mainstream historical fact is that in the 13th century, a mysterious and severe illness, dubbed the Black Fever, swept through the Louvre Palace. It was not a widespread epidemic that affected all of Paris, but an affliction that seemed to target only the residents of the royal fortress. It would come on suddenly, with a high fever and violent convulsions, and then just as suddenly it would vanish, leaving the afflicted with a strange vacant look in their eyes and no memory of the ordeal. The royal physicians were mystified, and the court historians dismissed it as an overblown account of a common illness. But the legend of the Black Fever persisted, a quirky or fringe tidbit of Parisian lore whispered among the locals. It was said to be a curse, a punishment from a wronged spirit that haunted the palace's deeper levels. The tapestries continue to unfold as you walk, a silent, horrifying film strip of the events that transpired here. The third tapestry shows a scene that is both disturbing and poignant. It depicts King Philippe Auguste, his face etched with sorrow and terror, kneeling before a group of priests. The priests are performing an ancient ritual, and they are holding a shining, crystalline sphere, the same sphere you saw in the chamber above. They are lowering it into a deep, dark pit, and as they do, the black cloud over the palace begins to recede, the sickness dissipating like smoke on the wind. It's a confirmation of what the architect's journal hinted at. The plague was not a plague at all. It was a manifestation of the entity, its first attempt to break free, its first taste of the world above. Historians still argue whether the Black Fever was a genuine medical phenomenon or a psychosomatic event caused by mass hysteria and fear. The fact that the illness only affected the residents of the fortress, and that its symptoms and duration were not consistent with any known disease, has led to a number of theories. Some scholars believe that it was an isolated outbreak of a new and deadly disease. Others, however, believe that the fear of the fortress's hidden secret, the fear of the thing beneath their feet, was so profound that it manifested as a physical illness, a psychological contagion that was more powerful than any known virus. The tapestries, of course, tell a different story. They show a deliberate, calculated attack by a non-physical entity, a terrifying intelligence that knew exactly how to inflict maximum psychological and physical damage. You stop and look at the final tapestry. It shows the Louvre, its walls now seemingly glowing, the black miasma gone, and a new, tranquil calm over the palace. The king is no longer shown kneeling in prayer but standing erect, a look of grim triumph on his face. The priests are gone, and a new figure has emerged, a man in a simple tunic, his face hidden in the shadows, his hands holding a quill and a scroll. It's the architect, of course, and the tapestry shows him drawing a series of complex diagrams on the scroll, the same diagrams you found in his journal. It's a chilling detail, a testament to the architect's final, desperate gamble. He didn't just contain the entity, he bound it to his mind, to his journal, to the very structure of the building. He turned the Louvre into a complex, multi-layered containment system, a prison for a god, and he made himself the jailer. The floor beneath you begins to tremble, a low guttural vibration that makes the tapestries on the wall ripple and shift as if they are made of water. You hear a sound now, not a whisper or a hum, but a low, persistent groan that seems to be coming from the very stone itself. It's the sound of immense, ancient suffering, and you realize it's the entity. It's not just a psychic presence, it's a physical one, and it's trying to get out. The air is growing colder and the flickering light from the walls is dimming, the tapestries losing their colour, turning to a flat, lifeless grey. You feel a presence, a new consciousness that is not the architect's. This is something else, something much older and more powerful. It's the voice of the king. He is here, a ghost bound to this place, a memory of his ambition and his terror. The voice is not in your ears, but in your mind, a clear, authoritative baritone. You have broken the seal, it says. You have set it free. You try to protest, to explain that you haven't set it free, that you've only found a way to contain it, to bind it. But the king's voice just laughs, a cold, empty sound that echoes in your mind. Fool, it says. The seal was not the lock. The seal was the architect's mind, and you have taken his place. You look down at your hands. You no longer hold the journal. It's gone. But you can feel its knowledge, its diagrams, its secrets. All of it is now in your mind. You are the key. You are the jailer. You are the architect. And the entity is now bound to you. The floor beneath you gives another violent shudder, and the limestone walls begin to crack, the beautiful tapestries tearing and peeling away to reveal a raw black stone beneath. The light fades, and the world is plunged into darkness. You are alone, and you are trapped. The king's voice laughs once more, a final hollow laugh that fades into the blackness, and then there is only silence. A deep, profound and terrifying silence. You have to find a way out, but you can't. The path behind you is gone. The path ahead is a black void. You have to find a way to contain the entity, to finish what the architect started. But how? The only thing you have is your own mind, and it is quickly becoming the very prison you were meant to escape. The silence is broken by a new sound, a sound that is so faint you almost miss it. It's the faint scrape of leather on stone, the metallic jingle of chainmail, the whisper of a breath. You're no longer alone. You reach out in the profound darkness and your hand touches a cold, unyielding surface. It's the wall of the corridor, no longer the smooth, decorated limestone but rough, raw stone, a different kind of darkness. A new, faint light appears, not from the walls, but from a new source. A single, flickering flame held in a ghostly hand. The hand belongs to a figure, a tall, gaunt man in the armour of a medieval royal guard. He's not a physical being. He's a spectre, a memory given form, and his eyes, hollow and empty, are fixed on you with an expression of immense fear. A mainstream historical fact is that the Louvre fortress was garrisoned by a royal guard, a standing army of knights and soldiers who were responsible for the king's safety. What is not as well known is the story of the Silent Guard, a company of guards who were assigned to the lower levels of the fortress. They were known for their profound silence, their inability or unwillingness to speak, and their strange vacant stares. They were dismissed as a group of shell-shocked veterans who had seen too much war, but a quirky or fringe tidbit from a long-lost chronicle of the court mentions that their silence was not a choice. It was a curse, a consequence of being too close to the thing in the pit, an ancient evil that stole their voices and replaced their thoughts with a terrifying, overwhelming sense of dread. The ghostly guard raises his lantern, and its light, though faint, is enough to reveal your surroundings. You're in a different section of the dungeon now, a place that is more of a prison than a passage. The corridor is lined with a series of heavy iron-barred cells, each one a small, cramped space with a single, mouldy straw pallet. The guard moves slowly, his feet making no sound, his face a mask of sorrow. He stops before one of the cells and points with a gaunt finger. Inside you can see the faint outline of a person, a huddled figure wrapped in a threadbare blanket. It's a man, and he's rocking back and forth, whispering to himself. The ghost guard's lantern swings, illuminating a piece of parchment that is pinned to the cell door with a rusty dagger. It's a report, written in the neat looping script of a medieval scribe. It's the guard's account. October 10th, 1222, the report reads. The king has ordered the final sealing of the lower levels. The architect, a man of great learning, has vanished. The men of the excavation team are mad, their faces ravaged by a sickness of the mind. They speak in a strange language, a series of clicks and hisses, and their eyes have a look of infinite horrifying knowledge. The king, in his great wisdom, has ordered them confined to the dungeon's cells, a prison for a madness that cannot be cured. We have been commanded to keep watch, to ensure that the madness does not escape. But we are afraid. The air here has a strange acrid smell, and we can hear a low, persistent hum, a sound that feels less like a sound and more like a thought. We are the silent guard. We have lost our voices, but our fear remains. You look from the report to the ghost guard and you understand. This isn't a memory. This is a living ghost, a spirit that is still bound to this place, still trapped in a loop of fear and duty. The men of the silent guard were not just victims of the entity. They were also the final living seal, the last line of defence, the men who sacrificed their sanity to ensure that the madness stayed contained. The figure rocking in the cell is one of them, a man whose mind was so overwhelmed by the entity's presence that it simply broke. Historians still argue whether the disappearance of the Royal Guard was a result of a mutiny or a more mysterious event. The official records from the time simply state that the entire garrison was replaced due to a breach of protocol, a vague and non-committal phrase that has led to a number of theories. Some scholars believe that the guards were punished for allowing the illness to spread among the court. Others, however, believe that the guards simply vanished, their bodies and their voices absorbed by the entity, their souls bound to the dungeon forever. The ghost before you is a testament to the latter. The ghost guard raises his lantern again, and the light now illuminates a new path. A narrow, winding corridor that leads away from the cells and deeper into the dungeon. He doesn't say anything, but his gesture is clear. You have to go deeper. You have to face the thing that broke these men, the thing that stole their voices. He is a warning and a guide, a silent, sorrowful ghost that is leading you to the heart of the prison. You follow him, your feet making no sound on the rough stone floor. The corridor is a long and winding one, and as you walk the air grows colder, and the faint hum from the distant cells is replaced by a low, persistent groan, a sound that feels like a grinding of immense gears. You come to a stop before a massive circular door. It's made of a dark, polished metal that seems to absorb all light, and it's covered in a series of intricate, interlocking gears and levers. There's no keyhole, no handle, nothing. The ghost guard stops before the door and turns to face you. His eyes, though hollow, seem to be filled with a new emotion, a profound, overwhelming sadness. He looks down at his hands and you see that they are not empty. He's holding something, a small, intricate carving made of wood. It's a simple carving of a soldier, a crude, amateurish piece of art. He holds it out to you, and his lips move, but no sound comes out. It's a silent, desperate plea. This is a quirky or fringe tidbit about the soul carvings of the silent guard. It was said that the guards, unable to speak, would carve small wooden figures to express their emotions and their fear. They were a form of therapy, a way to hold on to their humanity in the face of a terrifying, inhuman presence. The carvings were often found in the deepest, most sealed-off sections of the fortress, and they were always of the same thing. A soldier, his face a mask of terror. You take the carving from the ghost's hand, and as you do, a jolt of pure emotion, a surge of fear and a wave of profound sorrow washes over you. You're no longer standing in a dark corridor with a ghost. You are a soldier, a man who has lost his voice, a man who is standing before a prison for a madness that has stolen his soul. You feel his terror, his loneliness, his desperate desire to warn you. The ghost shimmers and fades, and the lantern goes out, plunging you into darkness once more. But you are no longer alone. You have his fear, his sorrow, his memory, and you have his carving. You look down at the carving in your hand, its small wooden face a mirror of your own fear. You hold it up to the metal door, and the intricate gears on its surface begin to turn, a slow, deliberate movement that sounds like the grinding of a million bones. The door before you begins to open. The massive metal door grinds open with a sound like 100 grinding teeth, its weight so immense that the very stone around it trembles. The air that rushes out is cold, sterile, and still. It's the air of a tomb, a vacuum where no life has been for centuries. The ghostly royal guard and his wooden carving are gone, leaving you alone once more, standing on the threshold of the dungeon's final chamber. The light from your phone is a pathetic, impotent flicker against the profound darkness, and you instinctively pocket it, choosing to trust your other senses. The air here has a different quality, a lack of dust or decay that makes it feel clean, almost unnatural. It's the air of a place that was sealed so completely that even time and rot couldn't get inside. You step through the door and the weight of it, its sheer scale and craftsmanship, is an immediate, palpable thing. The door is not just a barrier. It's an ornate, impossibly complex work of art, with a series of interlocking gear-like patterns etched into the dark metal. It looks like the face of a great clock that was not made for telling time, but for stopping it. A mainstream historical fact is that the Louvre fortress was renowned for its intricate hand-forged ironwork, particularly in its gates and doors. The blacksmiths of the era were considered artists, their skill a closely guarded secret. What history doesn't record is the legend of the soul-forged gate, a quirky or fringe tidbit of Parisian folklore that speaks of a door so complex and so beautiful that it was said to be forged not with fire, but with the despair and the sanity of the men who built it. The legend claims that the last door of the dungeon was a living prison, a cage so beautiful and so intricate that it would drive a man mad with its impossible perfection. The room you're in is not what you expected. It's not a dark, dank crypt. It's a vast, circular chamber, its walls and ceiling made of the same dark, polished metal as the door. The chamber is lit by a faint blue light that seems to emanate from the very air itself, a cool, ethereal glow that casts no shadows. In the centre of the room, on a circular pedestal of the same dark metal, is a cage. It's a work of impossible craftsmanship, a web of impossibly thin, almost invisible metal filaments that seem to twist and turn in the air, a spiderweb of shining light. The cage is not large, no bigger than a small sedan, and inside there is nothing. Just a space, an empty space that feels like a vortex of pure, unadulterated cold. Historians still argue whether the most advanced blacksmithing techniques of the 13th century were a result of a gradual evolution of skill or a sudden leap forward in knowledge. The fact that the art of filigree, the intricate lace-like metalwork, appeared suddenly and without precedent in the records of the royal forges has led some scholars to believe that it was not an internal development, but a result of a foreign, even non-human influence. The gilded cage before you, so impossibly delicate and yet so strong, seems to be a testament to this theory, a cage not just for a thing, but for a concept. You walk toward the pedestal, your feet making no sound on the polished metal floor. As you get closer, the air around you grows colder, and the faint blue light from the filaments begins to shimmer and shift, its colour deepening to an icy violet. You can feel a presence now, a new voice in your mind, a voice that is not a whisper or a hum, but a cold intellectual calculation. It is the entity, of course, and its voice is devoid of the rage and frustration you felt before. It is calm now, serene, and terrifyingly logical. It has assessed you, and it has found you wanting. You have come this far, the voice says in your mind, a clear, emotionless tone. You have a key in your mind, but you do not know the purpose of the lock. You have come to the cage, but you do not know the purpose of the prison. The cage before you is beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The filigreed filaments seem to writhe and twist in the air, a beautiful, impossible dance. They are not just metal. They are a representation of the architect's mind, a complex and intricate web of his knowledge, his fear and his despair. This is the final prison, the cage that he built to contain the entity, not just physically, but metaphysically. He didn't just want to trap it. He wanted to understand it, to study it, to learn its secrets, and to use its knowledge to save the world. He was not a man driven by ambition, like the king. He was a man driven by a desperate, terrifying hope. You look down at the pedestal and you see a new diagram, a new instruction that has appeared on its surface, etched into the dark metal by an unseen hand. The diagram shows the cage and a series of 3 circular depressions around it. The depressions are for 3 things: lux, the light; sonus, the sound; and veritas, the truth. To truly contain the entity, to keep it from ever influencing the world again, you have to find the 3 things that it fears most and use them against it: the light that it cannot absorb, the sound that it cannot silence, and the truth that it cannot corrupt. You have to finish what the architect started. The air around you grows colder still, and the beautiful, intricate filigree of the cage begins to pulse with a low, rhythmic light, its colour shifting from a beautiful violet to a violent, angry red. The entity's voice in your mind changes, the calm, logical tone replaced by a new, horrifying emotion, a triumphant, blood-curdling glee. "You are wrong," it says. "The cage is not a prison. It is a portal. You have come all this way not to contain me, but to release me. You have, in your foolishness, become the new key and now the door is about to open, and you will be the first to know the joy of my freedom. You feel a profound, soul-shaking dread. You have been played. You have been a pawn in a game you didn't even know you were playing. The architect's journal, the coded messages, the ghost of the royal guard, all of it was a series of elaborate, interconnected traps designed not to keep you out, but to lead you to this exact moment. The gilded cage before you, once a symbol of the architect's desperate hope, now seems to be a horrifying symbol of your own terrible, catastrophic mistake. The metal filaments begin to hum, a high-pitched, whining sound that feels like it's peeling the skin off of your bones, and the air is now filled with a low, guttural groan, a sound that is not a thought, not a sound, but a feeling. The feeling of something impossibly vast and impossibly old stretching its limbs after a long, long sleep. The cage is not just a work of art, it's a countdown, and the clock has just started ticking. The first filament snaps, a quiet little ping that sounds like a gunshot in the dead, silent air. The gilded cage is not a cage at all. It is a gilded cage for your soul. The metal filaments of the gilded cage are snapping one by one, each soft ping a high-pitched note in a rising symphony of dread. The serene intellectual voice of the entity is gone, replaced by a low, guttural chortle that echoes in your mind, a sound of pure, unadulterated triumph. The beautiful, intricate filigree is unravelling, the glowing threads of light becoming a tangled, chaotic mess. The air around you is no longer just cold, it's a profound, biting vacuum, a space where all warmth and hope are being sucked out of the world. You've been played. The architect's journal, his warnings, the ghostly guard's account. It was all a key, but not to a prison. It was a key to a lock that was meant to be opened. You stagger back, your foot catching on the pedestal, and you fall, landing with a soft thud on the polished metal floor. Your eyes are fixed on the cage, a beautiful, terrifying monument to your own foolishness. The space inside the cage is beginning to shimmer, the empty void twisting and writhing as if a new reality is being born within it. A sound begins to fill the chamber, a sound that is not a hum or a voice, but a chorus of whispers. There are 1,000 different voices, 1,000 different languages, all speaking at once, all of them begging, begging for release, begging for an end, begging for a mercy that will never come. A mainstream historical fact is that the Louvre fortress was built on a site that was once a mass burial ground, a final resting place for the victims of the countless wars and plagues that swept through medieval Paris. What is not as well known is the legend of the Louvre's lament, a quirky or fringe tidbit of Parisian folklore that speaks of the restless spirits of the dead who were buried beneath the palace. The legend claims that on certain nights the sounds of their mournful cries could be heard echoing from the deepest levels of the fortress, a haunting reminder of the lives that were sacrificed for the king's ambition. The whispers you hear now are not a legend. They are a reality. They are the souls of the dead trapped here, bound to the very stones of the dungeon, and they are crying out to you, a new, living presence, to help them. Historians still argue whether the location of the Louvre fortress was chosen for its strategic military value, or for a more occult purpose. The fact that the site was a known burial ground, and that the king's architects and engineers were known to dabble in the black arts and the occult, has led some scholars to believe that the fortress was not just a military stronghold, but a spiritual nexus, a place where the king could draw on the power of the dead to strengthen his rule. The cage before you, with its beautiful, impossibly intricate design, is a testament to this theory, a cage not just for an entity, but for the souls of the dead. You scramble to your feet, your mind a whirlwind of fear and a frantic, desperate need to stop this. You look around the chamber, your eyes searching for something, anything that can help. The pedestal, you remember, had 3 indentations: Lux, Sonus, and Veritas. The light, the sound, and the truth. The entity, in its smug intellectual voice, told you that the cage was a portal, that your foolishness had been the key to its freedom. But what if it was lying? What if it was a final test? What if the key to stopping it is not in the architect's mind, but in your own? You look down at your hand. You're no longer holding the wooden carving from the ghostly royal guard, but you can feel it, its simple, amateurish form, its weight, its coldness, its sorrow. You close your eyes and you feel a strange sensation, a pull, a warmth that is slowly, painstakingly being drawn into your palm. You open your hand, and there it is. A faint, luminous outline of the carving, a ghost of a thing, a memory of an object that no longer exists. This is not a magic trick. This is a manifestation of the psychic residue that the guard left behind, a mental echo of his sorrow and his fear. This is the first of the three things you need. This is a form of light. Not a physical light, but a light of pure emotion. A light that the entity, in its cold, logical reality, cannot comprehend. You place the glowing, ethereal outline of the carving on the first indentation. Lux. It settles there, a faint, pulsing light, and the whispers from the cage begin to recede, their volume dropping to a low, murmurous hum. The entity's triumphant chortle is replaced by a sound of surprise, a high-pitched, almost human gasp of shock and frustration. It didn't expect you to have this. It didn't expect you to be able to use the power of a human mind against it. Its voice in your mind is no longer a sound of triumph. It's a sound of hatred, a silent scream of impotent rage. How did you do that? It screams into your mind. That's not in the code. That's not in the plan. You have no idea how you did it, but you have no time to think about it. You feel another sensation, a new wave of emotion, a wave of profound, overwhelming sorrow. It's the emotion of the architect, a memory of his final desperate act, his sacrifice of his own sanity to protect the world. His journal, you remember, disintegrated into a pile of dust when you completed the circuit. But the memory of it, the feeling of its weight in your hands, its rough texture, its secrets, all of that is still in your mind. This is a form of sound. Not a physical sound, but the sound of a human mind breaking. A silent internal scream that the entity, in its cold, sterile world, cannot comprehend. You reach out, your hands shaking, and you form a new ghost, a new memory, a new piece of psychic residue. You form the ghost of the architect's journal. You hold it in your hands, a faint, blue, shimmering outline, and you place it on the second indentation, Sonus. The light of the ethereal carving grows brighter, and the hum from the cage recedes even further, the whispers now just a faint, almost inaudible echo. The entity is screaming now, a silent mental roar that feels like it's tearing the fabric of reality itself. It's a sound of pure agony, a sound of a being that is losing its grip, its power, its control. It has one last weapon, one last trick to play. It's going to take your memories. You feel a new wave of sensation, a cold, clinical probe into your mind, searching, searching, searching for something, for a memory, a lie, a truth it can use against you. It wants to find the one part of you that is corrupted, the one thing you are ashamed of, the one secret you keep hidden. It's a final, desperate gamble, a last-ditch effort to break your will and to destroy the two things you have already placed on the pedestal. You have no time to form another ghost, another memory. You have to use what you have. You have to use the truth of what happened to you, the truth of what you had to sacrifice to get here. You remember the blank space in your memory, the part that was so painful to let go of, the piece of your soul you gave to the dungeon to unlock its secret. You focus on that feeling of emptiness, on that absence of memory, on that silent scream of loss. You take that truth, that silent, horrifying knowledge, and you place it on the final indentation, Veritas. The three indentations glow with a new blinding light, a final brilliant flash of pure, unadulterated energy, and the cage before you explodes. But it doesn't explode in a shower of metal and light. It explodes inward, the metal filaments turning into a fine black dust, the humming, the whispering, the cold vacuum of the air. All of it is sucked into the centre of the pedestal, and then, with a soft final sigh, it all just disappears. The chamber is plunged into darkness, a profound, absolute darkness that is even deeper than the void you just escaped. You are alone, standing on a cold metal floor, a profound silence enveloping you. You have done it. You have contained the entity, but you have no idea what you have become in the process. You've sacrificed a piece of your soul, you've broken the rules of time and space, and you have, in a way, become the new key, the new jailer, the new architect of this secret dungeon. You have finished what the architect started. The darkness is absolute. The cold, polished metal floor beneath your feet is the only thing that reminds you that you are not in a void, but a physical space. The entity's triumphant laughter and desperate screams are gone, the whispers of the dead are gone, and even the faint rhythmic hum of the building itself has vanished. You are alone in a profound, deep silence that is more terrifying than any sound could ever be. You reach out, your hand searching for something, a wall, a pillar, anything. There is nothing. You're adrift in a perfect sensory deprivation chamber, a prison designed not to hold a body, but to contain a consciousness. The only light, the only anchor you have, is a new feeling in your mind, a faint, flickering memory that isn't yours. It's the memory of the architect, a final message he left behind, a final, desperate act of defiance against the entity that tried to consume him. The memory is not a visual one. It's a feeling, a series of emotions and sensations that unfold in your mind. You are the architect. You're standing in this very chamber, the gilded cage gleaming before you, and you are surrounded by a group of priests, their faces grim and determined. You are holding a scroll, and on it is a series of intricate, impossible diagrams. This is the ritual of sealing, the final act that was meant to contain the entity forever. A mainstream historical fact is that in medieval Europe, major architectural projects were often preceded by a complex series of religious and occult rituals. They believed that the building was not just a physical structure, but a spiritual one, and that the rituals would sanctify the ground and protect the people who would live within its walls. What is not as well known is the specific ritual that was performed here, a quirky or fringe tidbit of Parisian lore that speaks of the ritual of the 3 sacrifices. It was a ritual so dark and so powerful that it was said to be able to bind a demon or a fallen god, but it came at a terrible price. The memory unfolds. The priests are chanting, their voices low and guttural, and their chant is not in Latin or French, but in a language so ancient it feels like it's being born in your mind, a language of clicks and hisses and guttural sighs. As they chant, you feel a presence, the same presence you felt before, the presence of the entity, a cold, vast intelligence that is watching you from the void, a hunger that is so profound it feels like a physical thing. The priests are performing the first sacrifice, not of a living thing, but of a concept. They are sacrificing ambitio, ambition, the very thing that the king was so obsessed with. They are burning a crown of thorns, a symbol of the king's power, and as the thorns turn to ash, the entity's voice in your mind is a scream of pure, unadulterated frustration. The king's ambition was its first point of entry, its first connection to the human world, and now it's gone. Historians still argue whether the king's sudden change of heart, his decision to abandon his plans to use the entity for his own gain, was a result of a genuine religious conversion, or a more practical fear. The fact that the king became obsessed with the occult after a mysterious fever has led some scholars to believe that he was a victim of the entity's influence, and that his sudden retreat from the dungeon was an act of self-preservation, a desperate attempt to free his mind from its control. The ritual of sealing, if it happened, would be the definitive proof of this. The memory continues. The priests are performing the second sacrifice, sanitas, sanity. They are burning a book, not just any book, but the architect's own journal, a representation of his knowledge, his wisdom, his sanity. You feel his terror as he watches his life's work, his mind turning to ash. This is the sacrifice that binds the entity, the sacrifice that makes its prison not a physical one, but a psychic one. As the book burns, the entity's voice in your mind is a sound of pure agony, a sound of a being that is losing its grasp, its control, its connection to the human world. It is the architect's final act of defiance, his last attempt to ensure that the madness he unleashed would never be able to influence another human mind again. The final sacrifice, the one you are now a part of, is memoria, memory. The priests are holding a single, flawless, crystalline sphere, the same sphere you saw in the chamber above, a sphere that holds the consciousness of the entity itself. You, the architect, are a part of this. You are holding the sphere, and you are reciting a final, impossible incantation, a series of words that are not meant to be spoken, but to be felt. You are sacrificing a piece of yourself, a piece of your own memory, to make the lock a living one. As you speak the incantation, you feel a part of your mind, a piece of your soul, a memory of a loved one, a memory of your first love, a memory of a beautiful sunset, all of it is being pulled from you. A silent scream that is not a sound, but a feeling. It is a terrifying, beautiful, and utterly heartbreaking act of self-sacrifice. You're not just sealing a dungeon, you're sealing yourself inside of it. The memory ends. You're standing in the darkness once more, your mind reeling from the torrent of emotions and sensations. You have a new memory now, a new feeling. The feeling of that final sacrifice, the feeling of a part of your soul being ripped away. You don't know what you sacrificed, what memory you lost, but you know, with a chilling certainty, that it's gone forever. You're no longer just a tourist who stumbled into a secret. You are now the new architect, the new key, the new jailer, and the new sacrifice. The ritual is complete, the entity is contained, and you are all that is left of the human world in this dead, silent chamber. A new light appears, not a faint ethereal glow, but a sudden, brilliant flash of white light that is so bright it makes you cry out. The light illuminates the chamber, and you see that you are no longer in the gilded cage. You are in a different space entirely, a space that is so vast and so alien that your mind struggles to comprehend it. The walls are not stone or metal, but a living, pulsating substance, a matrix of black and shimmering purple that seems to writhe and twist in the air. The floor is not a floor, but a pool of black liquid, the same viscous substance you walked through before, and in the centre of the pool, on a pedestal of the same living, pulsating substance, is the crystalline sphere. It is pulsing now, its light a faint, rhythmic glow that is the only source of warmth in this cold, dead space. The entity is contained, but its prison is not a physical one, it's a psychic one, a prison of your own making, a prison that is now a part of your own mind. You look down at your hands, and you see that they are not your hands. They are a faint, ethereal outline of hands, a ghost of a thing, and you realise that you're not in a physical body anymore. You're a consciousness, a soul, a memory, and you are trapped here forever. A final, living key to a lock that can never be opened again. The ritual of sealing was not just a ritual for the entity, it was a ritual for you. You're no longer a physical being. You're a consciousness, a soul, a ghost in a machine of your own making. The vast, pulsating chamber of living stone is your new reality, and the crystalline sphere on the pedestal is the centre of your world. The entity is a prisoner within it, a silent, dormant intelligence that is bound to the prison of your mind. The air is no longer cold and still, but is now thick with a low, rhythmic hum, a sound that feels less like a noise and more like a heartbeat, the beat of a vast, alien organ that is your new body, your new reality. A mainstream historical fact is that the Louvre's foundations were built on a complex matrix of tunnels and quarries, a veritable honeycomb of subterranean passages that were once a source of stone for the city's buildings. What is not as well known is the story of the living stone, a quirky or fringe tidbit of Parisian folklore that speaks of a type of limestone found deep beneath the city that was said to be alive. The legend claims that the stone would hum and glow with a faint internal light, and that if you listened closely, you could hear the voices of the people who had died within its walls. The quarries, according to the legend, were abandoned not because the stone ran out, but because the stone began to whisper to drive the quarrymen mad with its ancient, terrible knowledge. You float through the chamber, a disembodied consciousness, a ghost, and you observe your new prison. The walls are no longer solid stone, but a living, pulsating matrix of black and shimmering purple. The matrix writhes and twists in the air, a series of distorted carvings and unsettling shadows that seem to writhe and shift on the walls. The shadows are not just the absence of light. They are a presence, a form of intelligence that is bound to this place. You see the shadow of the king, his face a mask of regret, his hands outstretched as if in supplication. You see the shadow of the architect, his face a mix of terror and grim determination. You see the shadows of the silent guards, their faces vacant, their hands raised as if in a silent scream. These are not just memories. They are echoes, psychic residue of the human beings who were all a part of this terrible history. Historians still argue whether the shadows of the Louvre were a genuine phenomenon or a psychological hallucination. The fact that the first modern security guards who were assigned to the deep subterranean levels of the museum would often report seeing dark shapes moving in the periphery of their vision has led some scholars to believe that it was an isolated case of mass hysteria. Others, however, believe that the guards were not hallucinating. but we're seeing the residual psychic energy of the people who are trapped here. The Chamber of Shadows, you now understand, is a living record of this place, a psychological film strip of the events that have transpired here. You feel a presence, a new consciousness that is not the king's or the architect's. This is something else, something much older and more powerful. It's the voice of the shadows. They are not speaking in words, but in feelings, a silent mental telepathy that is more powerful than any spoken language. He who comes here will be the next keeper, the shadows say into your mind. He who understands the prison will become a part of it. He who releases the one will become the next. The circle will never be broken. The chain will never be severed. The prison will always have a jailer. You try to fight back, to tell them that you are not a jailer, that you have contained the entity. But the shadows just laugh, a silent, empty sound that echoes in your mind. You have not contained it, they say. You have simply replaced it. The crystal sphere is not the prison. It is the key. The prison is you. The prison is your mind. The prison is your soul. The prison is your memories. The ritual of sealing was not for the entity. It was for you. And now you will take your place as the new keeper. You look down at your hands, or rather the ethereal outline of your hands, and you see that they are beginning to glow with a faint shimmering light. The light is not a good thing. It's a sign that you are being consumed, that you are becoming a part of the living matrix, a new shadow for the Chamber of Shadows, the king, the architect, the silent guards. They are all a part of this, and now so are you. The only way to stop it is to understand the purpose of this place. The gilded cage, you now understand, was not a prison. It was a lock that was meant to be opened by a new keeper, a lock that you have now become. You float toward the pedestal, the crystalline sphere pulsing with a low rhythmic light. The shadows of the king, the architect, and the silent guards are all watching you. Their faces a mix of sorrow and resignation. You have to find a way to escape, to sever your connection to this terrible place. But how? The only way out, you realize, is to find a way to break the chain, to release the entity without being consumed by it. The only way out is to free the entity and to leave the dungeon empty, a true and final prison. But you don't know how to do that. The architect's plan, his journal, his sacrifice, all of it was a part of a cycle, a never-ending loop of containment and release. You have to break the loop. You have to find a new way. You reach out, a disembodied consciousness, and you touch the crystalline sphere. A surge of pure, unadulterated knowledge, a torrent of information that is more powerful than any spoken language, floods your mind. You are the entity. You are a god, a fallen god, a whisper of truths that no man should know. You see the beginning of time, the birth of stars, the death of galaxies, the origin of life itself. You see your own future, a life of power and knowledge beyond your wildest dreams. And you see the price. The price is madness. The price is a hunger that can never be satiated. The price is a loneliness that is more profound than any solitude. The price is your humanity. You pull back, a silent scream of pure horror in your mind. You're not a god. You are a human being, and you have no intention of sacrificing your humanity for a power you don't want. The shadows are watching you, their silent laughter a sound of pure mockery. You have felt its power, they say. You have tasted its truth. You cannot resist it forever. The circle will always have a new keeper. The chain will always have a new link. The prison will always have a new jailer. You look at the shadows, and you feel a strange sense of empathy for them. They are not your enemies. They are a part of you now, a part of the prison you have now become. You have to find a way to release them, to give them peace. You have to find a way to break the chain. You have to find a way to release the entity and to leave the dungeon empty. But the shadows are right. The circle will always have a new keeper. The only way to break the circle, you realize with a sudden horrifying clarity, is to destroy the prison itself, to destroy the chamber, to destroy the dungeon, to destroy the Louvre, and you're the only one who can do it. You are the only one who has the key. The silent mockery of the shadows is a cold, cutting wind in your disembodied soul. They believe you are trapped, the new keeper in a lineage of despair that stretches back to a king's hubris. You float in the pulsing, living matrix of the Chamber of Shadows, a ghost in your own personal hell, and you know they are right. The entity is contained, but its prison is you. The only way to break the cycle is to destroy the prison itself, the very structure that you are now a part of, the Louvre. You reach out not with a hand but with a thought, and you touch the luminous crystalline sphere. A new surge of knowledge, a new memory that is not yours, floods your mind. It is a memory from a different keeper, a different ghost in this terrible machine. It is the memory of King Louis XIV, the Sun King, a man so obsessed with power and glory that he moved the entire royal court to Versailles, a fortress he built to escape the shadow of the old world. But he could not escape the shadow of the Louvre. A mainstream historical fact is that King Louis XIV, despite his love for Versailles, spent an enormous amount of royal funds on the Louvre, ordering a massive renovation that turned the medieval fortress into the grand palace we know today. What is not as well known is the real reason for this spending. The king was not just building a palace. He was building a new, more powerful prison, a cage for the thing that his ancestor had so foolishly tried to contain. The memory unfolds, and you are Louis XIV, a king plagued by a terrible secret. You are in a vast, ornate room, a room that is so opulent and so beautiful, it could only be the work of an insane mind. The walls are covered in gilded carvings and priceless paintings, but in the corner of the room, hidden behind a tapestry, is a small, unremarkable door. You, as the king, have a terrible feeling about this door. You know what it leads to. You know what is down there. You have heard the stories of the Black Fever and the Silent Guard. You have read the whispers of the long-dead court historians, and you know, with a chilling certainty, that your ancestors did not contain the entity. They simply bound it, and now its power is seeping into your palace, a silent, insidious influence that is making your courtiers greedy, your generals cruel, and your reign more and more tyrannical. A quirky or fringe tidbit of Parisian folklore speaks of the king's madness, a strange affliction that would sometimes befall King Louis XIV. He would retreat from the public eye for days at a time, and when he returned his eyes would be wild, his words would be nonsensical, and he would often be found staring at the empty spaces in the walls of the palace, as if he were seeing a ghost. The legend claims that the king was not mad, but that he was fighting a war, a silent internal war against a parasitic intelligence that was trying to consume his mind. The king's final act, according to the legend, was a final desperate attempt to win that war. The memory of the king is a powerful one, filled with a deep, abiding fear that is more palpable than any emotion you have felt before. You're not just seeing a memory, you're feeling it, experiencing it. The king is in his private chambers, a small, unassuming room that he uses as a study. The room is filled with books and scrolls, and he is frantically writing, his hand trembling, his face a mask of profound despair. He is writing a letter, a secret message to his most trusted advisor, a message he knows will never be read. He is confessing. He is confessing that he has failed. He has failed to contain the entity. He has failed to escape its influence, and he has come to a terrible conclusion. The only way to stop it is to destroy it. To destroy the dungeon, to destroy the palace, to destroy the legacy of his entire royal line. Historians still argue whether King Louis XIV's obsession with the Louvre's foundations was an act of architectural genius or an act of pure madness. The fact that the king ordered the construction of a new, complex drainage system beneath the palace, a system that had no apparent purpose, has led some scholars to believe that he was a brilliant engineer who was simply ahead of his time. Others, however, believe that the drainage system was not a system for water, but a system for something else, a way to drain the psychic energy from the foundations, a final, desperate act to starve the entity of its power. The king's secret letter, if it were ever found, would be the definitive proof of this. The memory of the king shows you the letter. It is a single, priceless document that holds the key to the ultimate destruction of the dungeon. But you don't need to find it. You already have it. The knowledge of the letter, the plan, the key, is now a part of your own mind. The king is confessing that the drainage system he built was a series of conduits, a network of tunnels that led to a central unmapped chamber. This chamber, he writes, holds the final secret, the final key to destroying the dungeon. He doesn't know what it is, but he knows where it is. He has to trust that someone, a future keeper, will be able to find it and use it. The memory ends, and you are a consciousness again, floating in the chamber of shadows, the shadows of the king, the architect, and the silent guards all watching you, their silent laughter a sound of pure triumph. They believe you are trapped, a new link in the chain. But you're not trapped. You have the key. You have the knowledge of the king's final act, the final, desperate gamble that was meant to free the world from the entity's influence. You know where to go. You know what you have to do. You float out of the chamber of shadows, your disembodied consciousness moving through the pulsating living matrix of the walls. The shadows of the king, the architect, and the silent guards are all screaming now, a silent mental roar of frustration and rage. They know you have the key. They know you have a way out. They know you're going to break the loop. The hum of the living stone grows louder, a high-pitched whining sound that feels like it's peeling the skin off of your disembodied soul. They are trying to stop you. They are trying to pull you back. But you are stronger than they are. You have the knowledge of the king. You have the wisdom of the architect. You have the courage of the silent guards. You are a culmination of all of their fears and all of their hopes. You are the final keeper, and you're going to break the chain. You move through the darkness, following a path that is not a physical one, but a psychic one, a path that is etched in your mind, a path that the king left behind in his final, desperate act. You feel the presence of the entity, a cold, vast intelligence that is watching you from the crystal sphere. It knows what you're doing, it knows where you're going, and it is not angry. It is curious. It wants to know what you're going to do. It wants to know if you're going to succeed. It wants to see a human being, a small, insignificant creature, try to do something that is impossible. It is no longer trying to stop you. It is watching, waiting, its vast alien consciousness filled with a profound and terrifying curiosity. The race is on. You against the entity. The future of the Louvre and the world hangs in the balance. You have the key, but you have no idea what it unlocks. You have to hope that it is not another trap. You are a thought, a wisp of consciousness, a frantic dart of being in a subterranean labyrinth. The shadows of the past, the king, the architect, the silent guards, scream in your mental wake, their fear and rage a cold, useless pressure against the knowledge you now hold. You have the king's final act, a memory map to a chamber that holds the key to the ultimate destruction of the dungeon. The entity, that cold, vast intelligence, is a silent observer, a predator watching its prey, its curiosity a far more terrifying thing than its rage. You're no longer just a ghost, you are a threat. You push through the pulsating living matrix of the walls, your disembodied soul passing through solid stone as if it were water. The hum of the living stone grows louder, a high-pitched whining sound that feels like 1,000 fingernails scraping against a blackboard. You are a foreign presence, an unwelcome intruder in a system that has been self-contained for centuries. The shadows try to stop you, their silent forms lashing out, their fear thoughts like barbs trying to snag your consciousness and pull you back. But you are faster. You are more determined. You have a purpose. You are following a path that is not a physical one, but a psychic one. A series of psychic conduits, a nervous system for a dungeon that is a living thing. You move through a winding, impossible tunnel, a tunnel that exists in a dimension between stone and mind. It's a place of pure psychic resonance, a place where all the fear, all the suffering, all the madness of the centuries has been condensed into a palpable, suffocating substance. You're in the core of the prison, the heart of the fear. You're here to confront the thing that broke the king, the thing that drove the architect mad, the thing that stole the voices of the silent guards. You're here to confront the thing they all feared. The tunnel ends in a sudden open space. You're in a vast circular cavern, and the air here is no longer cold or thick with the smell of ozone. It is still, and it smells of nothing. An absence of smell, an absence of light, an absence of sound. It is a perfect vacuum, a pocket of anti-reality in the heart of a city. In the centre of the cavern, on a small, unassuming pedestal of black stone, is a single, solitary thing. It's not the crystal sphere. That is still back in the chamber of shadows, a prisoner of your mind. This is something else entirely. It's a small, intricate carving of a spider. Not a realistic carving, but an abstract one. A series of impossible, interlocking shapes that form the outline of a spider, its 8 legs connected to a single, pulsating centre. A mainstream historical fact is that King Philip Augustus' engineers and stonemasons were renowned for their intricate carvings, particularly their abstract and symbolic designs. What is not as well known is the spider's carving, a quirky or fringe tidbit of Parisian lore that speaks of a carving so realistic and so terrifying that it would cause anyone who looked at it to be overcome with a profound, irrational fear. The carving was said to be a warning, a final, desperate act by the masons who were tasked with building the deepest parts of the dungeon. The legend claims that the carving was not just a symbol of fear, but a living thing, a psychic parasite that would feed on the fear of anyone who came too close. Historians still argue whether the spider was a genuine piece of art or a symbol of something more sinister. The fact that the masons who carved it all died of a strange, inexplicable illness, an illness that made them claw at their own eyes, has led some scholars to believe that the spider was not just a carving. It was a trap, a lure, a physical manifestation of a psychological contagion. The spider before you is a testament to this theory, a thing of pure, unadulterated terror. You can feel its influence, a cold, probing presence in your mind, a silent inquiry into your darkest fears. It's searching for your weaknesses, for your insecurities, for the one thing that will break you. You are a consciousness. You have no body, you have no blood, you have no breath, you have no fears. You have already sacrificed the part of you that was afraid, the part of you that was human. You are not a person anymore. You're a keeper, a jailer, a thing. You have to fight it. Not with fear, but with something else. You have to fight it with a pure, unadulterated knowledge, a silent mental telepathy that is more powerful than any weapon. You have to use the very thing that it gave you against it, the knowledge. You reach out, a disembodied consciousness, and you touch the spider carving. A surge of pure, unadulterated knowledge, a torrent of information that is more powerful than any spoken language, floods your mind. You're not a human being. You are a thing, a fallen god, a whisper of truths that no man should know. You see the secrets of the universe, the birth of stars, the death of galaxies, the origin of life itself. But you see the price now, the terrible, horrifying price. The knowledge is not a gift, it is a parasite. It is a thing that feeds on the sanity of its host, a thing that turns a brilliant mind into a hollow shell. The knowledge is not a power, it is a hunger, it is a disease, and it is trying to consume you. The spider carving pulses with a low rhythmic light, its intricate, impossible shapes twisting and turning in the air. The entity's voice in your mind is a sound of pure, unadulterated glee. You have taken its knowledge, it says. You have taken its wisdom. You have taken its truth. And now you will be its new host. You will be its new prison. The circle will never be broken. The chain will never be severed. The prison will always have a jailer. You fight back. You have to fight back. You have to use the knowledge against it. You use the knowledge to recreate the dungeon, a perfect, intricate, beautiful prison in your mind. The walls, the cells, the doors, the gilded cage, the crystal sphere, all of it is a part of your mind now, a prison that you are building for a thing that is a part of you. You're not just a keeper, you are a creator, you are an architect, you are a jailer. You are building a new prison, a new, more powerful cage for a thing that is now a part of you. The spider carving begins to scream, a silent mental roar of frustration and rage. It's trying to break free, to escape your new, impossible prison, but you are stronger than it is. You have the knowledge of the king, the wisdom of the architect, the courage of the silent guards. You are a culmination of all of their fears and all of their hopes. You are the final keeper, and you're going to break the chain. The spider carving pulses with a final brilliant flash of white light. The light is so bright it makes you cry out, and when you open your eyes you're no longer in the cavern. You are in a different space, a new reality, a new dimension. You are in the core of the prison, the heart of the fear, and you are alone. But you are not alone. You have the spider. You have the entity. You have the thing they all feared, and it is a part of you now. You have contained it. You have become the new prison. But you're not a prisoner. You're the jailer, and you have the key. You have the knowledge to destroy the prison itself, to destroy the dungeon, to destroy the Louvre. The race is on, you against the entity. The future of the Louvre and the world hangs in the balance. You have the key, but you have no idea what it unlocks. You have to hope that it is not another trap. You're no longer a consciousness floating in a dark subterranean cavern. You're an architect of a new reality, a jailer in a prison of your own making. The entity, that terrifying, abstract spider, is a part of you now, a silent, symbiotic presence in the deepest recesses of your mind. It is a source of infinite knowledge and a well of profound loneliness, and you are its keeper. The line between your mind and the dungeon's reality has become so blurred as to be non-existent. You are the dungeon. The dungeon is you. The very air you breathe, or rather the air that your disembodied soul perceives, is a testament to this. A strange, metallic tang of ozone and old dust. A perfect blend of the entity's essence and the Louvre's history. You are not in a physical place anymore. You're in a psychic one. You're floating through a labyrinth of thoughts and emotions, a complex network of corridors and chambers that exist only in your mind. The walls are not stone or metal, but pure, unadulterated fear. The echoes of the past, the king's ambition, the architect's despair, the silent guard's terror, are all a part of this new reality, a series of psychic imprints that are both a warning and a guide. You're a ghost, not in the physical sense, but in the psychological one, a lingering presence in a place where past and present have no meaning. A mainstream historical fact is that the Louvre is not just a museum. It is a monument to the history of a city and a nation. It has been a medieval fortress, a royal palace, and a centre of art and culture. What is not as well known is the temporal anomalies of the Louvre, a quirky or fringe tidbit of Parisian lore that speaks of a place where time itself has no meaning. The legend claims that on certain nights, the palace's security guards would report seeing a different Louvre, a medieval fortress with its drawbridges down and its portcullis raised. They would hear the sounds of horses' hooves on the courtyard and the distant clang of a blacksmith's hammer. These were not hallucinations, according to the legend, but glimpses into a past that was so powerful it was bleeding into the present. The entity is a part of you now, and its reality is a part of your own. You're no longer just seeing things, you're experiencing them. You're in the Louvre, but it is not the Louvre you know. The Grand Glass Pyramid is gone, replaced by the great keep of King Philippe Auguste's fortress, a massive, unyielding tower of stone that rises into a sky of perpetual twilight. The manicured gardens are gone, replaced by a muddy, unkempt courtyard where soldiers in chainmail walk their patrols, their faces grim, their eyes vacant. You are a ghost, a silent observer in a past that has become your present. Historians still argue whether the temporal anomalies were a genuine phenomenon or a result of mass hysteria caused by the Louvre's long and often bloody history. The fact that the most vivid of these hallucinations were reported by the security guards who were assigned to the oldest, most sealed-off sections of the palace, has led some scholars to believe that the history of the Louvre is not a series of events, but a continuous living thing, a psychic tapestry that is woven into the very stone. You, as a new and powerful addition to this tapestry, are a testament to this theory, a living link between the past and the present. The entity, that cold, vast intelligence, is a silent observer now, a ghost in your own machine. It is waiting for you to break. It is waiting for you to give in. It is waiting for you to realize that you cannot defeat it, that you cannot contain it, that you can only become a part of it. The whispers of the shadows are gone, replaced by a new, more terrifying thought. It's your own voice, your own thoughts, corrupted, twisted, and filled with a profound sense of hopelessness. It's your own mind turning against you, a final, desperate attack from a foe that knows you better than you know yourself. You are a consciousness. You have no body. You have no fear. You have no hope. You have only a purpose: to destroy the prison, to sever the chain, to free the souls of the dead, and to leave this place a hollow, empty shell. You have to use the knowledge you have. The king's final act, the architect's despair, the silent guard's terror, all of it. You have to use the very thing that the entity used to break them, to break the prison itself. You have to use the past to destroy the present. You reach out, a disembodied consciousness, and you begin to manipulate the reality around you. The stone walls of the fortress begin to crumble, the stones turning to dust, the dust turning to nothing. The soldiers in the courtyard turn to shadows, and the shadows turn to a fine black ash. You are tearing apart the fabric of the psychic reality that is the dungeon, and as you do, the entity's voice, your voice, screams in your mind. It's not a sound of rage, but a sound of pure agony, a silent mental roar that feels like it's tearing the fabric of reality itself. It's not a sound of defeat. It's a sound of a thing being consumed. The world around you is unravelling. The twilight sky is gone, replaced by a black starless void. The fortress, the courtyard, the soldiers, all of it is gone. A memory turned to dust. You are alone in the blackness, and you're not in a physical place anymore. You're in a void of pure, unadulterated nothingness, a place where time and space have no meaning. But you're not alone. You can feel the presence of the entity, that terrifying abstract spider, and you can feel its agony, its frustration, its rage. You have contained it, yes, but not in a physical cage. You have contained it in a void of your own making, a prison that exists only in your mind. You have won. You have defeated the entity, but you have paid a terrible price. You're not a human being anymore. You're a ghost, a keeper, a jailer, a living prison in a void of nothingness. You've sacrificed your body, your hope, your humanity, all of it, to save the world. The unravelled reality of the dungeon is a testament to this, a silent, empty monument to your victory. But you are not victorious. You are alone, and you are trapped. You are alone in the black void, a disembodied consciousness, a keeper without a key. The dungeon is gone. The Louvre is gone. The entity, that terrifying abstract spider, is a silent, dormant presence within your own mind, a prisoner you have bound with the very fabric of your soul. The silence is profound, absolute, and utterly terrifying. You have done what no one before you could. You have broken the cycle. You have severed the chain. You have won. But you have paid a terrible price. You're not a human being anymore. You're a ghost, a living prison in a void of nothingness. A mainstream historical fact is that the Louvre is not just a museum. It is a repository of history, a place where the past is preserved for the future. It is a testament to the power of human beings to create and to build, to overcome adversity and to leave a legacy. But what is not as well known is the Phantom Curator, a quirky or fringe tidbit of Parisian folklore that speaks of a ghost that haunts the deepest levels of the museum, a silent, benevolent presence that is said to be the protector of the Louvre's most ancient and powerful secrets. The legend claims that the ghost is not a human spirit, but a psychic imprint, a living memory of a person who sacrificed their life to protect the palace. The void around you begins to shimmer, and a new reality, a new dimension, begins to take shape. It is not a place of stone and metal, but a place of light and colour, a beautiful, impossible landscape of glowing, ethereal threads that twist and turn in the air, a vast spiritual tapestry. The threads are not just light. They are a representation of the souls of the dead, the silent guards, the architect, the king, all of them. They are no longer shadows. They are a living, beautiful presence, a chorus of silent mental voices that are filled with gratitude and peace. You have freed them. You have given them peace. You have given them a final rest in a place where they can no longer be tormented by the entity. Historians still argue whether the Louvre is just a building or something more. The fact that the most vivid of the temporal anomalies and the most profound of the psychic disturbances have all been reported in the same unmapped sections of the palace has led some scholars to believe that the Louvre is not just a building, but a living thing, a spiritual nexus that is a record of all the history, all the art, all the life that has passed through its halls. You, a new and powerful addition to this living history, are a testament to this theory, a living link between the past and the future. The entity is a silent, dormant presence within your mind, a caged god that is bound to the prison of your own making. It is a source of infinite knowledge and a well of profound loneliness, and you are its keeper. But you are not a prisoner. You are the jailer, and you have the key. You have the knowledge to destroy the prison itself, to destroy the dungeon, to destroy the Louvre. You have a choice now, a final choice that will determine the future of a place and a person. You can destroy the prison and be free, or you can stay and become the new Phantom Curator, a silent, benevolent presence that is the protector of the Louvre's most ancient and powerful secrets. You choose the latter. You choose to stay. You choose to become the new Phantom Curator. You have sacrificed your body, your hope, your humanity, all of it, but in return you've been given a new purpose, a new destiny. You're no longer just a person. You are a ghost, a keeper, a living memory in a place where past and present have no meaning. You are the final keeper, and you are going to protect the Louvre from the thing that lives within you, the thing that you have now become. The threads of light and colour coalesce, and a new reality, a new dimension takes shape. It is not the Louvre you know. It is the Louvre as it was meant to be, a place of peace and art, a sanctuary for a king's legacy. You are here, a silent presence, a ghost in the halls, and you are protecting it. You are a phantom curator, a keeper, a jailer, and you are finally at peace. The whispers are gone, the screams are gone, the fear is gone. There is only peace. A deep, profound, and beautiful peace. You have won. But you have paid a terrible price. The threads of light and colour begin to fade, and a new reality, a new dimension begins to take shape. It is a peaceful, beautiful place, a place of light and art, a place where the past and the present have no meaning. You are here, a silent presence, a ghost in the halls, and you are protecting it. The phantom curator, the new keeper, the final jailer. You are finally at peace. You've made it through, little night owl. You've walked the dark passages, faced the shadows, and unravelled a secret a king tried to bury. The echoes of the past are fading now. The hum of the dungeon is just a gentle drone in the distance. The cool air is just a fan. The rustling is just the leaves outside your window. Your home, safe and sound. The old fortress and its terrible secret are just a story, a whisper in the night, a legacy left to the brave. The Louvre sleeps on, its masterpieces gleaming under the moonlight, and you can rest knowing its deepest secrets are now watched over. The silence is not an empty one. It is a peaceful one, a comforting one, a soft, gentle blanket of peace. Just like the shadows of the past, you can now rest. You have done your part. Sweet dreams, little keeper.